My sister Brooke said wiring her $12,000 was the only way to prove I wasn't just a nobody. She called it an investment in our legacy. I called it the price of my parents' love. But as I watch her $3.2 million deal disintegrate, I realize she was right. That check proved exactly who I was. The only one left standing when the truth finally came out. The fluorescent light of my kitchen flickered, a subtle strobe effect that synchronized perfectly with the throbbing headache behind my left eye. I sat at the small, laminate table, my laptop humming against the plastic placemat. It was the third Friday of the month, in my world. That meant budget reconciliation night. I took a sip of lukewarm water and stared at the spreadsheet. This was my life, distilled into rows and columns of brutal honesty. Rent for the one-bedroom apartment on the edge of Clearwater took 40% of my take-home pay. Student loan payments took another 15%. Utilities, car insurance for my 7-year-old sedan, and the grim reality of grocery inflation ate up the rest. There was a column highlighted in green at the very bottom. It was labeled Emergency Fund. It currently held exactly $6,422. It had taken me 4 years to save that amount. It was my shield. It was the only thing standing between me and the terrifying fragility of modern existence. If my transmission blew, or if I needed a root canal, I would be okay. I was safe. I was responsible. I was boring. That was the word my mother used, though she usually wrapped it in softer phrasing. She would call me steady or reliable or sensible, but the tone always implied a lack of imagination. To Helen and Mark Kelly, my parents. Being sensible was a consolation prize for people who lacked the brilliance to be spectacular. My phone buzzed against the table, vibrating so hard it rattled my spoon against the empty yogurt cup. I looked at the screen. Mom, I let it buzz 3 times before answering. I needed those few seconds to put on my armor, to adjust my voice from tired project manager to dutiful daughter. Hi, Mom, I said, keeping my voice light. Lydia, pick up, pick up, pick up, she said, breathless, as if she were running a marathon. Oh, good, you are there. Listen, check the group chat. I just sent the details. Details for what? I asked. I rubbed my temple. I had a 60-hour week at Northway Trans Solutions behind me. My project, restructuring the logistics software implementation for the tri-state area, was hemorrhaging money and patience. All I wanted was to turn off my brain and watch a documentary about penguins. Dinner, she said. Tonight, you cannot say no. Lydia, do not even think about saying no. Mom, I am exhausted. I started, this is not about you, she cut in. It is Brooke. She has huge news. Huge. We are going to the Gilded Olive at 7:30. Wear something nice. Not that gray cardigan you always wear. This is a celebration. The Gilded Olive. I did the mental math instantly. Entrees started at $40. Cocktails were $18. Even if we split the check. I was looking at a $100 night. I looked at my spreadsheet, at the little green cell. What is the news? I asked. She is finally doing it, Mom said, her voice dropping to a reverent whisper. Brightloop is taking off. She has a partner. A real one. This is history. Lydia, this is the family legacy. You need to be there to support your sister. Support. That was the other word. I was the supporting cast. Brooke was the lead. I will be there. I said, good. Do not be late. And Lydia? Try to look happy. This is a big night. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, seeing my own reflection in the dark screen. I looked tired. I looked like a 32-year-old woman who managed human resources projects for a trucking logistics company. I looked like someone who saved coupons and drove a car with a dent in the rear bumper because fixing it seemed like a vanity expense. I stood up and walked to my closet. I pushed past the gray cardigan. It was charcoal, actually, and very high quality, and found a black dress I had worn to 3 weddings and a funeral. It would have to do. As I dressed, the ghosts of the past sat on the bed and watched me. It had always been this way. The narrative of the Kelly family was a single spotlight, and it was permanently fixed on Brooke, Brooke, who was 2 years older, Brooke, who had blonde highlights and a smile that could convince a traffic cop to apologize for pulling her over. I remembered the mantelpiece in our childhood home. It was a shrine to Brooke's triumphs. There were first-place trophies for dance competitions, framed certificates for student government, and glossy photos of her cutting ribbons at charity events. My accomplishments were there, too. But they were different. A perfect attendance award, a certificate for completing the library reading challenge. Brooke was the star, I was the helper. The disparity wasn't just emotional, it was financial. When Brooke got into that private university in California, my parents remortgaged the house to pay the tuition. They said it was an investment in her potential. They said she needed to be in an environment that matched her energy. 2 years later, when I graduated high school with a higher GPA than she ever had, the conversation was different. We are a little tight right now. Honey, my dad had said, squeezing my shoulder. Community college is a smart choice. You are so practical. Lydia, you do not need the bells and whistles. You can transfer to state later. So I did. I worked 20 hours a week at a coffee shop while taking classes. I paid for my own textbooks. I drove a rusty hatchback while Brooke drove a leased convertible her sophomore year because, as my mother put it, image is important in her major. I never hated Brooke. That would have been easier. It is hard to hate someone who shines so brightly. You just feel cold when you're standing next to them. I drove to the Gilded Olive in silence. The restaurant was downtown, in the revitalized district where old brick warehouses had been turned into lofts and overpriced bistros. Valet parking was mandatory. I handed my keys to a teenager who looked at my sedan with polite disdain. I walked inside. The air smelled of truffle oil and expensive perfume. The lighting was dim, designed to make everyone look younger and richer. I saw them immediately. They had the best table in the house, a circular booth in the center of the room. My father, Mark, was wearing his best suit, the one he usually saved for church on Easter. My mother, Helen, was wearing a sequined top that caught the candlelight, and there was Brooke. She looked spectacular. She was wearing a white blazer that looked like it cost more than my first car. Her hair blown out in soft, golden waves. She was laughing, her head thrown back, holding a glass of champagne. I approached the table. My father saw me first. There she is, he said, but his eyes barely left Brooke, the reliable one. Sit down. Lyd, we just ordered a bottle of bubbles. Hi, everyone, I said, sliding into the empty seat across from them. Brooke reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her palms were warm and dry. Mine were cold and clammy. Lydia, she said, beaming, I am so glad you made it. I was telling Mom and Dad. The team would not be complete without my little sister. You look great. Brooke, I said. She waved a hand dismissively, though she clearly knew she looked incredible. It has been a whirlwind, she said. Absolute chaos, but good chaos. The waiter arrived and poured me a glass of champagne without asking. I took a sip. It was crisp and dry. I tried to relax my shoulders. So, I said, Mom said there is big news. Brooke exchanged a look with our parents. It was a conspiratorial look, a look that said they were part of a club I had not been invited to join. Tell her, honey, my mother urged. She was practically vibrating with excitement. Brooke set her glass down. She leaned in, lowering her voice to a theatrical whisper. Bright Loop is happening. Lydia, really happening. We have been in beta for 6 months. You know that. But the data? It is off the charts. We are disrupting the behavioral feedback loop for mid-tier corporate retention. I nodded. I had no idea what that meant. Brooke had pivoted her startup 3 times in the last 2 years. First, it was an app for dog walkers. Then it was a social network for antique collectors. Now, it was corporate retention software. That sounds promising, I said. Promising? Brooke laughed. It is revolutionary, and the market knows it. I have been in talks for 3 weeks with a silent partner, a very serious, very deep-pocketed entity. She paused for effect. They are preparing to inject $3.2 million into Brightloop. I blinked. $3.2 million. That was a number I could not even visualize. It was abstract. Wow. I said, that is incredible. Brooke, congratulations. My father slapped the table. Incredible? It is a home run. A grand slam. My girl is going to be a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. I always knew it. Did I not say it? Helen? I said she had the vision. You always said it. Mark? My mother agreed. Her eyes misty. Brooke basked in the praise, soaking it up like a flower turning toward the sun. The term sheet is being finalized this week, Brooke said. It is called Harbor Light Capital. They are very exclusive. They do not just invest in companies. They invest in founders. They vetted me. Lydia. They looked at everything, and they decided I was the horse to bet on. I took another sip of champagne. So you are signed? I asked. It is a done deal? Brooke waved her hand again. Formalities, she said. Due diligence. The lawyers are just crossing the T's. But the commitment is there. We are looking at a valuation that would make your head spin. The waiter arrived with appetizers, towering platters of seafood, oysters on ice, and steak tartare. My parents dove in, celebrating their victory. For the next hour, I disappeared. They talked about office space. Brooke described the glass-walled headquarters she was scouting in the financial district. They talked about hiring. She needed a CTO, a CFO, a director of vibes. They talked about the house my parents wanted to buy in Florida once Brooke went public. Not once did anyone ask about my job. Not once did they ask about the logistics restructuring project that was keeping me awake at night. Not once did they ask if I was happy. I sat there, eating a shrimp cocktail I could not taste, nodding at the right moments. I was the audience. I was the witness. That was my role. As the main courses were cleared and the dessert menus arrived, the energy at the table shifted. It was subtle at first. My father cleared his throat. My mother took a long sip of water and set her glass down with a sharp click. Brooke stopped talking about the view from her future office and folded her hands on the white tablecloth. She looked at me. For the first time all night, she was really looking at me. Her eyes were intense, blue and unblinking. Lydia, she said. My stomach tightened. I knew that tone. It was the tone she used when she wanted to borrow my car and leave it with an empty tank. There is one more thing, Brooke said. She glanced at our parents, then back to me. Harbor Light is the lead investor, obviously. But part of the deal structure, and this is very standard in high-growth startups, is that they want to see skin in the game. They want to see that the founder has a support network. They call it the friends and family round. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. It is a validation metric, Brooke explained. They want to see that the people who know me best believe in me. It is not about the money, really. It is symbolic. It is about signaling confidence. She paused. Mom and Dad are in. Obviously. My father puffed out his chest. We are putting in everything we can, he said solemnly. We believe in your sister, Lydia. We are stretching, but we are doing it. We are liquidating the bonds and tapping into the home equity because you bet on a winner. My heart started to hammer against my ribs. I saw where this was going. That is great. Dad, I said. Brooke leaned closer. I want you to be part of this. Lydia, I want you on the cap table. I do not want you to be on the outside looking in when this thing explodes. I want my sister right there with me. I gripped my napkin under the table. Brooke, I said, you know my situation. I'm on a tight budget. I really do not have capital to invest in a startup. Brooke's smile didn't falter, but her eyes grew colder. We are not talking about millions. Lydia, it is a closed round. I am only opening it to 3 people, Mom, Dad, and you. That is it. How much? I asked. 10,000 is the minimum buy-in for the round, she said smoothly. But for the equity split to make sense with the legal fees, we are looking for 12, I repeated. You mean 1,200? She laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. 12,000. Lydia. Come on. 1,200? That would not even cover the filing fees. $12,000. The number hung in the air like a guillotine blade. $12,000 was everything I had. It was my entire emergency fund plus nearly $6,000 I did not have. It was nearly 4 months of my gross salary. Brooke, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I do not have $12,000. My mother made a noise of impatience. Oh, Lydia, honestly, she said, you have been working at that trucking place for 5 years. You live like a nun. You do not go on vacations. You do not buy clothes. Where does your money go? I have student loans. Mom, I said, I have rent. I am saving. But I only have about half of that, and it is for emergencies. This is an emergency, my father snapped. Not a bad one. A good one. An opportunity. Do you think opportunities like this just knock on the door every day? Your sister is offering you a ticket on a rocket ship, and you are talking about pennies. It is not pennies to me. I said, it is everything I have. Brooke sighed. She looked at me with a mixture of pity and disappointment that made my skin crawl. Lydia, she said softly, this is what I mean. You play so small. You act like the world is trying to take things from you, instead of grabbing what is yours. Someone your age, with your career. You should have liquid capital. If you do not, that is a problem. But we can fix it. She was turning it around. My financial prudence was now a failure. My budgeting was a character flaw. I cannot give you money I do not have, I said. My father leaned forward. His face was red. You can find it, he said. You have credit. You have a steady job. You can take a loan. We are all making sacrifices here. Your mother and I are putting our house on the line because we believe in this family. Are you saying you do not? The trap snapped shut. It wasn't about the money. It was about loyalty. If I said no, I wasn't just declining an investment. I was rejecting the family. I was saying I did not believe in Brooke. I was confirming what they had always suspected, that I was separate from them. Brooke watched me, her gaze unyielding. It is not just money, Lydia, she said, repeating the words she had clearly rehearsed. It is proof. It is proof you are truly part of this family and not nobody. If you are not with us on this, you are just a bystander, a spectator in our lives. Is that who you want to be? I looked at my mother. She was staring at me with hard, expectant eyes. Don't be selfish, Lydia, she whispered. For once, just do not be selfish. I felt a wave of nausea. I was 32 years old, and I was suddenly 6 again, holding a macaroni art project while everyone looked at Brooke's ballet trophy. I was the disappointment. I was the dead weight. I wanted them to stop looking at me like that. I wanted, just for a moment, to be on the inside of the circle. I wanted my father to look at me with the same pride he had just directed at Brooke. I will figure something out, I heard myself say. The tension at the table broke instantly. My father let out a loud breath and grinned. That is my girl, he boomed. I knew it. I knew you would step up. Brooke smiled. A genuine, dazzling smile of triumph. I knew you would. Lyd, I really did. She reached into her oversized designer tote bag and pulled out a sleek tablet. She placed it on the table in front of me. I have the participation agreement right here, she said. It is all drafted, standard boilerplate. Just needed to fill in your amount. Now, I asked. Timing is everything, she said. Harborlight needs to see the commitments locked in by Monday morning. If we do not sign tonight, it delays the whole $3.2 million tranche. You do not want to be the reason the deal stalls. Do you? She tapped the screen. A digital document appeared. Dense paragraphs of legal text scrolled by. I saw words like indemnity and irrevocable and liquidity event. I should probably read it, I said, reaching for my reading glasses in my purse. Brooke laughed gently. Lydia, it is 40 pages of legalese. It just says you are investing $12,000 and you get Class B non-voting shares. Mom and Dad already signed theirs. Do you think I would trick you? I am your sister. Just sign it. Lydia, my mother said, picking up her fork to attack her dessert. Let's not ruin the mood with paperwork. I looked at the tablet. I looked at the glowing signature line. If I signed this, I would empty my savings account. I would have $0 for a flat tire, $0 for a layoff, and I would have to go to the bank tomorrow and apply for a personal line of credit for the other $6,000. I would be paying interest on a gift to my sister. But they were all watching me. My father, with his wine glass raised, my mother, with her expectant smile, Brooke, with her terrifying confidence. I felt small. I felt like I was drowning in their expectations. I picked up the stylus. My hand was shaking. I signed my name, Lydia M. Kelly. I tapped the button that said, "Confirm, done," Brooke said, snatching the tablet back before the screen even faded. She tapped a few more things and slipped it back into her bag. She raised her glass. "To Brightloop," she said, "and to family, to family." My parents echoed. I raised my glass. But I didn't drink. I felt sick. The rest of the dinner was a blur. I remember nodding. I remember paying for valet parking with a credit card because I didn't want to spend the $20 cash I had in my wallet. I walked out of the Gilded Olive into the cool night air. My stomach was in knots. I felt a heavy, cold stone settling in my gut. I had just set fire to my safety net. I had just mortgaged my peace of mind for a seat at a table where I wasn't even allowed to speak. I sat in my car and gripped the steering wheel. The leather was cold. I could hear Brooke's voice echoing in the silence of the car. "Now we will finally know who you are." I started the engine. The check engine light, which had been flickering intermittently for weeks, turned on and stayed on. A steady, orange warning. I drove home. The numbers swirling in my head. $12,000, $3.2 million. I didn't know it then, but I had just bought a front row ticket to the destruction of my family, and it was going to cost me a lot more than $12,000. I pulled into my apartment complex, parked in my assigned spot, and turned off the ignition. I sat there in the dark for a long time, listening to the engine tick as it cooled, wondering why, if I had just done the right thing. I felt so completely and utterly doomed. The morning after the dinner, the world looked exactly the same, but it felt thinner, as if the ground beneath my feet had turned to paper. I sat at my laptop with my banking portal open in one tab and the new credit line application in another. The transfer button was a small, blue rectangle. It looked innocuous. It looked like the button you would click to pay a $20 electric bill. But when I clicked it, I wasn't just moving numbers. I was eviscerating my safety. I typed in the routing number for Brightloop LLC. I typed in the account number Brooke had texted me, followed by 3 heart emojis. I typed in the amount, $12,000. I stared at the screen. My finger hovered over the mouse. "Do it," a voice in my head whispered. It sounded like my father. "Stop being so timid." I clicked. The screen refreshed. Transaction pending. I switched to my savings account tab. The balance, which had been a comforting $6,422 just moments ago, now read $422. The rest of the money had come from the fresh line of credit I had opened at 7 in the morning, a loan with an 8% interest rate that I was now responsible for servicing. I closed the laptop and sat in the silence of my apartment. I felt lightheaded. I felt like I had just jumped off a cliff because someone told me there was a net at the bottom, but I hadn't bothered to look down first. For the rest of the weekend, I moved through my life like a ghost. I went to the grocery store, but instead of buying my usual organic spinach and Greek yogurt, I found myself staring at the prices of rice and beans. I put the $6 almond milk back on the shelf and bought the store-brand cow's milk. I did the math in my head. If I saved $4 here and $3 there, I could pay off the interest on the loan in maybe 6 months. I canceled my Sunday morning yoga class. It was $22 a session. That was a luxury I could no longer afford. Instead, I laid out my mat on the living room floor and tried to do a sun salutation. But my mind wouldn't quiet down. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the number 12,000 burning in the darkness. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling fan. What if my car broke down? The transmission had been making that grinding noise. That would be $2,000. I didn't have $2,000. I had $400 and a maxed out credit line. What if I tripped and broke my ankle? What if I got laid off? The restructuring at Northway Trans Solutions was supposed to be about efficiency, but everyone knew what that word really meant. It meant cuts. If I lost my job, I would default on the loan within 60 days. My credit score, which I had polished like a trophy for a decade, would plummet. I would be ruined. By Monday morning, I was a wreck. I walked into the Northway office building, scanning my badge with a trembling hand. The fluorescent lights overhead felt aggressive, too bright and too buzzing. I went straight to my cubicle and turned on my monitors, hoping the familiar glow of email would ground me. "Lydia, good morning." My boss, David, said, stopping by my desk. He was holding a large coffee. "We have the implementation strategy meeting in 10 minutes. I need you to walk us through the new vendor compliance protocols." I nodded. "Absolutely. David," I said, "I am ready." I wasn't ready. I grabbed my notebook and followed him into conference room B. The room was air-conditioned to a frigid temperature. I took my usual seat near the whiteboard. There were 6 of us. David, 2 other project leads, the IT director, and Jenna Price, my work best friend, and the only person in the building who knew I watched reality TV. Jenna smiled at me from across the table. I tried to smile back, but my face felt stiff. David started the meeting. He was talking about synergy and cross-platform integration. Words that usually made sense to me now sounded like a foreign language. "Lydia," David said, turning to me, "why don't you break down the timeline for the Q3 rollout?" I stood up. I plugged my laptop into the projector. The spreadsheet appeared on the wall, a massive grid of dates and deliverables. So, I began, my voice sounding thin, as you can see. The initial phase begins on the 1st of next month. We have allocated 3 weeks for beta testing. I looked at the numbers on the screen. 3 weeks, 21 days. Suddenly, the numbers on the screen weren't dates. They were dollar signs. The cells started to swim. The grid lines began to vibrate. My heart gave a hard, painful thud against my ribs, then another. It started beating so fast I could feel it in my throat. My palms slicked with sweat instantly. The room started to tilt. I gripped the edge of the mahogany table. I couldn't breathe. It felt like a belt was being tightened around my chest. "Lydia?" David asked. "You okay?" I tried to speak, but my tongue felt like it had swollen to twice its size. I was having a heart attack. No, I was having a panic attack. I knew what it was, but knowing didn't stop the terror. I was going to pass out. I was going to fall over in front of the executive team, and they would fire me and I would lose my apartment and I would have to live in my car. "I just need a second," I managed to whisper. I unplugged the laptop, the screen going blue. I shoved my hands into my pockets so they wouldn't see them shaking. "I am so sorry," I said, backing toward the door. "I think I ate something bad. Excuse me." I rushed out of the room, not waiting for a response. I made it to the women's restroom and locked myself in the handicapped stall. I sat on the toilet lid, put my head between my knees, and gasped for air. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. It took 10 minutes for my heart rate to come down. I sat there, shivering, feeling a profound sense of shame wash over me. I was the reliable one. I was the steady project manager. I didn't run out of meetings. When I finally emerged, splashing cold water on my face, I looked in the mirror. My skin was pale. My eyes looked haunted. I went back to my desk, keeping my head down. An email from David was waiting. "Hope you are feeling better. Let's regroup tomorrow. Get some rest." I stared at the screen, tears pricking my eyes. I was cracking. It had been less than 72 hours, and I was already cracking. At 5 o'clock, Jenna appeared at the edge of my cubicle. She was wearing her coat and holding her purse. "You," she said, pointing a manicured finger at me, "are coming with me." "I cannot." I said, "I have to." "You have to nothing," she said. "You ran out of a meeting." Lydia, you look like you have seen a ghost. We are going to the tap room. I am buying. The mention of free alcohol was the only thing that could have persuaded me. Okay, I said. The tap room was a dive bar 2 blocks from the office, the kind of place that served wine in tumblers and had peanuts on the floor. We sat in a dark booth in the back. Jenna ordered a Pinot Grigio for herself and a Cabernet for me. She waited until I had taken a long drink before she spoke. Talk, she said. I sighed. I swirled the red liquid in the glass. I did something stupid. I said. Jenna raised an eyebrow. Define stupid. Did you text your ex? Worse. I said. I gave my sister money. Jenna's expression shifted from amused to concerned. She knew about Brooke. I had told her stories over the years. The favoritism. The drama. The startup delusions. How much? She asked. $12,000. I said. Jenna choked on her wine. She coughed, slamming the glass down. 12,000? Lydia. Do you even have $12,000? I did. I said miserably. Now I have a loan and $400. I told her everything. The dinner at the Gilded Olive, the ambush, the $3.2 million silent partner, the way my father looked at me, the way Brooke said it would prove I wasn't a nobody. By the time I finished, Jenna looked furious. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring at the wall, her jaw tight. That is manipulation. Lydia, she said, pure and simple. They cornered you. I know. I said, but if this deal goes through, Brooke says it is a sure thing. Harbor Light Capital is the partner. They are legit. Jenna turned to me. Her eyes were serious. My brother, Mike, she said, you remember Mike? I nodded. 3 years ago, Mike put 20 grand into his buddy's crypto exchange platform. She said, they had a silent partner too. They had a flashy website. They had a launch party in Miami. Do you know what happened? They lost it? I guessed. The partner didn't exist. Jenna said, the contracts were full of holes. Mike didn't just lose his money. Lydia. He got sued by the vendors because he signed a partner agreement that made him liable for the debts. He had to declare bankruptcy. He is 35 and he lives in my parents' basement. A cold chill went down my spine. Brooke wouldn't do that. I said, she can be selfish, but she isn't a scammer, and Harbor Light is real. I looked them up. Did you read the paperwork? Jenna asked. Really read it? I hesitated. I skimmed it. I said, Brooke said it was standard boilerplate. Jenna leaned across the table. She grabbed my hand. Lydia, listen to me. There is no such thing as standard boilerplate when you're writing a check for $12,000. Go home, tonight, open that document. Read every single word. If there is anything in there that you do not understand, you Google it. I will. I said, promise me, she said. I promise. I went home and made myself a dinner of toast and scrambled eggs, because it was the cheapest thing I had. Then I sat at my kitchen table and opened the file on my tablet. Participation Agreement. Brightloop, LLC. It was 42 pages. I started at page 1. The first 10 pages were definitions. Company, investor, founder. It seemed normal. Then I got to page 18. Article 4. Representations and warranties. I read through the density of the text, my eyes straining. Then, on page 26, I stopped. Subsection 14.b. Guarantor obligations. The text read, the investor, herein referred to as support guarantor, acknowledges that their contribution serves as collateralized consideration for the securing of primary funding. The support guarantor agrees to indemnify the company and its primary creditors against default events. I read it again. Support guarantor, collateralized consideration. I opened a new tab on my browser. I typed in collateralized consideration meaning. The search results were not comforting. They talked about assets pledged to secure a loan. They talked about liability that extended beyond the initial investment. I went back to the document. Subsection 14. C. In the event of a solvency crisis or liquidity shortfall prior to the closing of the Series A round, The support guarantor agrees that their personal assets may be subject to review for satisfaction of bridge obligations. My heart started hammering again, the same way it had in the conference room. Bridge obligations. Brooke had told me this was an investment. She said I was buying shares. She hadn't said anything about being a guarantor. A guarantor was someone who paid when the borrower couldn't. I scrolled down. My digital signature was there on the last page, stamped with a time and date. I picked up my phone. It was 8:30 at night. I called my father. He answered on the second ring. "Lydia," he boomed. "We were just talking about you. Brooke is looking at office chairs. Did you know an ergonomic chair costs $800? "Dad," I said, cutting him off. "I am reading the contract I signed." "Oh, good," he said, his tone shifting slightly. "Good to be thorough." "Dad, there is a clause in here about being a support guarantor." I said, "It says I am indemnifying the company. It says my assets are collateral." There was a pause on the line. I could hear the television in the background. "Lydia, you are overthinking it," he said, his voice dropping into that condescending register he used when I asked about car repairs. "It says I am liable." "Dad," I insisted, "if Brooke defaults, they can come after me? Is that what this means?" His sigh was loud and staticky. "Honey, listen to me. This is how grown-up deals work. High finance isn't like opening a checking account. There is always language like that. It is just to make the lawyers happy. It is never going to be used." "But why is it there?" I asked. Brooke said it was just a friends and family round. She didn't say I was guaranteeing anything, because the big investors need to see commitment, he snapped. Harbor Light needs to know we are all in. If you are already looking for the exit, Lydia, you are missing the point. I am not looking for an exit. I said, I am looking for an explanation. I don't have assets. Dad, I don't have a house. If something goes wrong, nothing is going to go wrong, he shouted. Why are you always so negative? Your sister is on the verge of the biggest success of her life, and you are nitpicking legal jargon? I am scared. Dad, I whispered. Stop it, he said. You are embarrassing yourself, and if you call Brooke with this whining, you are going to humiliate her. Do you want that? Do you want to prove everyone right? Prove everyone right about what? I asked. That you just do not have the vision, he said. That you are small. The line went dead. I sat there, holding the phone, the silence of the apartment pressing in on me. Small. That was the word that hurt the most. I opened Instagram. I needed to see what was real. Brooke's profile was a wall of curated success. Her latest post, posted 2 hours ago, was a photo of her and my parents. They were standing in front of a brick wall with a neon sign that said, Dream Big. My mother was holding a bouquet of flowers. My father had his arm around Brooke. The caption read, So incredibly blessed to have a support system that believes in the vision. Big things coming. Bright Loop founder, life. Unstoppable silent partner, 3.2. Million reasons to smile. I wasn't in the photo. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't mentioned. I scrolled down. Another post from yesterday. A picture of a sleek black notebook with the Bright Loop logo embossed on it. Caption. Preparing for the next chapter. When the heavy hitters come to play, you have to be ready. Harbor Light Capital. We are ready for you. There were hundreds of likes, comments from her sorority sisters, from random tech accounts, from our cousins. Go Brooke, you deserve this. Powerhouse. I looked at the phone, then back at the contract on my screen. Subsection 14.b. I needed to know. I needed to hear it from her. I opened my text thread with Brooke. Me. Hey, I'm looking at the agreement. Can you just explain what the funds are being used for exactly? And what this guarantor clause is? I am a little confused. I watched the 3 dots appear, then disappear, then appear again. 10 minutes passed. Finally, her response came through. Brooke. Seriously. Lyd? I am in the middle of a strategy session for the launch. You are asking me this now? Me. I just want to understand. $12,000 is a lot for me. Brooke. It is capital. Lydia. It goes into the OPEX bucket, operations, legal, compliance, the stuff that lets us accept the $3.2 million. Stop being so small-minded and transactional. It is unbecoming. A second message followed immediately. It was an image. It was a generic infographic, the kind you could download from a stock photo site. It was titled, The Innovation Funnel. It had colorful arrows pointing to bubbles labeled ideation, synergy, and market fit. There was no budget breakdown. There was no mention of legal fees or debt service. Brooke. There, that is the roadmap. Now please, let me work. I am doing this for all of us. I stared at the infographic. Ideation. I felt stupid. I felt like I was the child asking why the sky was blue, and the adults were annoyed that I didn't understand atmospheric physics. But I also felt something else, a cold, hard knot in my stomach that wasn't just fear anymore, it was suspicion. She hadn't answered the question. She had deflected, she had insulted me, and she had sent me a cartoon. I closed the chat. I opened my budget spreadsheet again. I deleted the row for Netflix. $14 saved. I deleted the row for Spotify. $10 saved. I deleted the row for the weekend trip I had planned to visit my college roommate in Chicago next month. That was a $300 plane ticket I wouldn't be buying. I looked at the bottom line. Even with the cuts, I was in the red. The loan payment would eat everything. I took a screenshot of the spreadsheet. I cropped it so it just showed the cell with my remaining bank balance. $422.18. I went to my phone settings. I changed my wallpaper. Now, every time I unlocked my phone, every time I went to check Instagram or text my mom, I would see it. $422.18. It wasn't a motivation, it was a scar. I turned off the lights and went to bed. But I didn't sleep. I lay there listening to the wind rattle the window pane, thinking about subsection 14b, and realizing that for the first time in my life, being the reliable one might be the thing that destroyed me. One decision, one signature, and the walls of my life had closed in. The notification arrived on a Tuesday morning, vibrating against the plywood surface of my desk at Northway Transsolutions. It was a forwarded link from my mother, sent to the family group chat. The message attached to it was a string of party popper emojis and the words, "It is happening. We are part of history." I clicked the link. It led to a tech blog called the Midwestern Silicon, a site that covered the burgeoning startup scene in the Rust Belt. The headline was bold and black. Is this Ohio startup the next unicorn? Behavioral data breakthrough attracts major capital interest. I read the article with a growing sense of detachment. It described Brightloop not as the chaotic, pivot-prone project I knew, but as a sleek, data-driven revolution. It used phrases like algorithmic retention modeling and predictive turnover analysis. It mentioned that the company was in the final stages of closing a seed round with a sophisticated institutional partner, rumored to be the prestigious Harbor Light Capital. The article quoted Brooke, "We are not just building software," she had told the reporter, "we are building the future of human capital, and to do that, you need partners who understand the vision. We have found that partner." I put the phone down. The article made it sound real. It made the $3.2 million sound inevitable. For a moment, I felt a flicker of relief. If this was real, if Harbor Light was truly about to write a check that large, then my $12,000 was safe. My loan would be repaid. I could go back to being boring, invisible Lydia. But the relief was thin, like a layer of ice over a dark river. That Sunday, I drove to my parents' house for brunch. It was a mandatory attendance event. My mother had texted me 3 times to remind me to be on time. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something strange. The overgrown rhododendrons that usually block the front window had been cut back aggressively. The peeling paint on the front door had been scrubbed. The house looked like it was staging itself for a showing. I walked inside. The smell of bacon and expensive coffee filled the air. "Lydia," my mother called out from the kitchen. "Come see." I walked into the kitchen. The table was set with the good china, the plates with the gold rims that we were never allowed to use growing up. Brooke was sitting at the head of the table, typing furiously on her phone. She didn't look up when I entered. "Look at this," my mother said, shoving a glossy brochure into my hands. It was a catalog for custom kitchen cabinetry. The cover featured a marble island the size of a small car. "We are thinking of the dark cherry wood," my mother said, pointing to a picture. "It looks more executive. Do you not think?" "Executive?" I asked. "Mom, you guys have been talking about downsizing to a condo for 5 years. Why are you looking at a $50,000 kitchen remodel?" My father walked in from the patio, holding a carafe of orange juice. He looked energized, younger than I had seen him in years. "We are not downsizing." "Lydia," he said, pouring juice into crystal glasses. That was small thinking. "We are pivoting, I repeated. The word sounded wrong in his mouth, like he was trying to speak a language he had only heard on television. "Brooke needs a base," he continued. "When she is in town for board meetings, when she has investors over, she cannot bring them to a house with Formica countertops. This house is going to be her entertaining space. It is part of the brand." I looked at Brooke. She finally looked up from her phone. Her eyes were bright, almost feverish. "Image is equity. Lydia," she said, "Harbor Light expects a certain caliber of presentation. We are leveling up." "But how?" I asked, looking around the kitchen that hadn't been updated since 1998. "How are you paying for a remodel before the deal even closes?" My mother laughed, a high tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. "Oh, stop worrying," she said. "We are releasing some equity. It is just leverage. The house has been sitting here doing nothing. Now it is working for us." Releasing equity. The phrase landed in my stomach like a stone. They were taking out a home equity line of credit, or worse, a second mortgage. They were leveraging the only asset they owned to build a stage set for Brooke's imaginary life. "Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "interest rates are high right now. If you tap into the equity, you sound like a bank teller." Brooke snapped, "Always looking at the penalties, never the potential. We are locking in bridge financing. Once the Harbor Light deal executes, we pay it all off. It is bridge capital, leverage, equity." They were throwing around these words as if they were magic spells that protected them from consequence. I sat down. I ate the bacon. I drank the expensive coffee. I listened to them talk about the future as if it were a movie they had already filmed. They talked about the trips they would take. They talked about the guest house they might build in the backyard for security detail. It was delusional, and it was terrifying. After brunch, while my father was showing Brooke the backyard, discussing where a gazebo might go, I started clearing the table. My mother had disappeared upstairs to find fabric swatches. I carried a stack of plates to the sink. The kitchen counter was cluttered with mail. My parents were not organized people. Bills, flyers, and magazines usually formed a geologic layer near the toaster. I reached for a sponge and froze. Sticking out from under a pile of Bed Bath Beyond coupons was a thick cream-colored envelope. It was torn open. The flap jagged. The return address was embossed in navy blue ink. Harbor Light Capital, Department of Risk Compliance, Due Diligence Inquiry. I looked toward the back door. I could see my father gesturing at the oak tree. I looked toward the hallway. Silence. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and pulled the envelope out. My heart hammered against my ribs. I shouldn't be reading this. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to Mark and Helen Kelly. But I had paid $12,000 to be part of this family. I felt I had bought the right to know. I pulled out the letter. It was a single sheet of heavy paper, stapled to a packet of forms. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Kelly, regarding the collateral assessment for the bridge facility associated with Bright Loop LLC, please find attached the requisite acknowledgement forms. As primary guarantors, your residence at 442 Maple Drive has been provisionally listed against the secured credit facility. Furthermore, we require an updated signature verification for the additional guarantor, Lydia M. Kelly, regarding her support guarantee of the Class B liabilities." I stopped breathing. Additional guarantor, Lydia M. Kelly, support guarantee of the Class B liabilities. The room seemed to tilt. This wasn't just about the $12,000. This wasn't just about losing my savings. Support guarantee meant I was backing the debt. Class B liabilities sounded like a bucket for everything that wasn't covered by the primary assets. And my parents had listed the house, not just for a kitchen remodel, but as collateral for a credit facility. A credit facility is a loan. Brooke was taking out loans in the company's name, using our house and my name as the insurance policy. I fumbled for my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I opened the camera app. I snapped a picture of the letter. The text was slightly blurry. I took another one. "Lydia?" My mother's voice came from the hallway. I jumped, shoving the letter back under the stack of coupons. I grabbed a dirty plate and plunged it into the soapy water just as she walked in. She was holding a swatch of velvet. "Do you think this blue is too dark?" she asked. "For the curtains?" I turned to face her. I could feel the blood draining from my face. "Mom," I said. She stopped. She looked at me, then at the pile of mail. Her eyes narrowed. She moved quickly, crossing the kitchen in 3 strides. She reached out and took the envelope, sliding it into the pocket of her cardigan. "I saw that letter," I said. She smoothed her cardigan. Her face shut down. It was a transformation I had seen 1,000 times. The warm, bubbly mother replaced by the cold, defensive gatekeeper. "It is just paperwork." "Lydia," she said tightly. "It said I am an additional guarantor." I said, "It said Dad put the house up as collateral." "Mom, do you know what that means?" "It means we are supporting your sister," she hissed. "Unlike some people, it means if she fails, you lose the house." I said, my voice rising, "It means if she fails, they come after me." "For what? Class B liabilities? What is that? How much money are we talking about?" "Lower your voice," she commanded. "Brooke is outside. Do not ruin this for her." "Ruin it?" "Mom, this is dangerous. You are betting the house. Literally." "We are investing," she cried, her voice cracking. "We are investing in our child. Why can't you understand that? Why do you have to be so jealous?" "Jealous?" I stared at her. She truly believed that. She believed my fear was envy. She believed my caution was malice. "It is standard procedure," she said, turning her back to me to fiddle with the coffee maker. "Harbor Light just needs assurances. It is all going to be refinanced in a month when the big deal closes. It is just paper." She refused to look at me. I finished washing the dishes in silence. The water was hot, scalding my hands, but I didn't turn it down. I needed to feel something other than the cold dread spreading through my chest. I left 20 minutes later. I told them I had a headache. Brooke didn't even say goodbye. She was too busy measuring the patio for the imaginary gazebo. I drove straight to the public library. I didn't want to go home. I needed neutral ground. I sat at a carrel in the back corner and opened my laptop. I connected to the public Wi-Fi. I typed in the terms from the letter: personal guarantee versus support guarantee, collateralized credit facility startup, Class B liabilities definition. The search results were a horror story. I learned that a personal guarantee acts as a pierced veil. It means the limited liability of the company doesn't apply to you. You are the company. I learned that collateralized obligations meant the creditor could seize the asset without a court order in some jurisdictions, depending on the contract language. I learned that Class B liabilities often referred to unsecured debts, vendor payments, credit card balances, legal fees, the messy stuff, the stuff that gets paid last in a bankruptcy. I was guaranteeing Brooke's credit card bills. I was guaranteeing her lawyer fees, and I hadn't even read the document where I agreed to it. I had signed a tablet at a dinner table because I didn't want to make my sister cry. I pulled up the photo I had taken of the letter on my phone. I zoomed in. "We require an updated signature verification." Updated, that implied they already had one, but I had only signed the participation agreement. Had I signed something else? Had there been another page on that tablet? My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jenna. "Sunday scaries? Or did you survive the family brunch?" I typed back, "I need a lawyer." "A real one," I think I'm in trouble. Jenna called me immediately. Where are you? She asked. The library. I said, listen to me. She said, there is a legal aid clinic at the community center on Tuesdays. It is free. My cousin used them when her landlord tried to keep her deposit. They have real attorneys who volunteer. You are going. I cannot afford a lawyer. Jenna, I said, I have $400. It is free. Lydia, you are going. Put it in your calendar. Tuesday at 6. I went. The Clearwater Community Center was a depressing building made of cinder blocks painted a pale, institutional yellow. The air smelled of floor wax and stale coffee. The legal clinic was held in the gymnasium. Folding tables were set up in rows. I waited in line for 40 minutes. When my name was called, I was directed to table 4. The woman sitting there looked exhausted. She had curly dark hair pulled back in a messy bun and was wearing a blazer over a t-shirt. Her name tag said, Marisa Trent, Esquire. Sit down, she said, not looking up from her file. What is the issue? Housing? Employment? Contract? I said, and debt. She looked up. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and devoid of patience. Let's see it, she said. I pulled out my tablet. I had downloaded the participation agreement Brooke had emailed me, the one I had signed. I also showed her the photo of the letter from my mother's kitchen. Marissa put on a pair of reading glasses. She scrolled through the agreement on my tablet. She read fast. She stopped at page 26, subsection 14.b. She made a sound that was half laugh, half groan. Who wrote this? She asked. My sister, I said, or her startup team. It is a Frankenstein document, she said. It is cut and pasted from 3 different types of corporate law. It is a mess. Is it valid? I asked. She looked at me. Did you sign it? Yes. Then it is presumptively valid until a judge says otherwise, she said. And that is the problem. She turned the tablet around to face me. She tapped the screen with a pen. Look here, she said. You think you made an investment. You think you bought equity. But look at the consideration clause. I looked. It was gibberish to me. It says, Marissa translated, that your $12,000 is classified as guarantee consideration. In plain English, you did not buy stock. Lydia, you paid a fee. A fee? I whispered. You paid them $12,000 for the privilege of letting them use your credit history as a backstop, she said. You paid them to let you take the fall. I felt the room spin. That cannot be right, I said. Brooke said it was a friends and family round. She said I was getting Class B shares. It says here you are eligible for Class B shares upon the successful closing of the Series A round. Marissa read, it is conditional, but the guarantee? That is immediate. That is active right now. She looked at the photo of the letter from the kitchen, and this, she said, pointing to the Harbor Light letter. This is the smoking gun. They are calling you an additional guarantor. That means there are others. Your parents? Yes. I said, they put up their house. Marissa took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. Okay, she said, this is bad. I'm not going to lie to you. This is very bad. If this company goes under, and it has debts, the creditors can bypass the company and come straight to the guarantors. They can attach your wages. They can garnish your bank accounts. And if your parents signed a deed of trust, they can foreclose on that house. I felt like I was going to vomit. What do I do? I asked. You need to stop signing things, she said. Immediately. Do not sign a birthday card. Do not sign a delivery receipt. And you need to start building a paper trail. A paper trail? You need to document everything, she said. Every text, every email, every conversation. Write it down. Dates, times, who said what. If this goes to court, and it sounds like it might, you need to prove that you were coerced or that the terms were misrepresented. She handed me a card. I cannot represent you formally, she said. This is a clinic, but if you get served with a lawsuit, call me. I know a bankruptcy attorney who is cheap. Bankruptcy. The word hung in the air between us. Marissa looked at me with a flicker of sympathy. One more thing, she said. Yes? She pointed to the clause again. This implies there is a master agreement somewhere, a document that lists exactly what the debts are. You need to see that document. You have a right to see what you are guaranteeing. Ask for it. I walked out of the community center into the cool night air. I felt different. I didn't feel like the younger sister anymore. I didn't feel like the disappointment. I felt like a victim. And victims, if they survive, become witnesses. The next morning, I was sitting at my desk at Northway, staring at a spreadsheet, when an email popped up. From Admin Brightloop. Subject: Urgent. Compliance Acknowledgement. HLC. Requirement: my stomach dropped. I opened it. Hi, Lydia. Per the compliance team at Harborlight, we need a quick signature on the attached acknowledgement of guarantor status. This is just a formality to verify your identity for their files. Please sign via DocuSign by EOD. Thanks. Brightloop Admin Team. I stared at the screen. Just a formality. A week ago, I would have signed it. I would have signed it because I was afraid of making Brooke angry. I would have signed it because I wanted to be a good sister. But I heard Marissa's voice in my head. You paid them to let you take the fall. I looked at the attachment. It was a single page. It referenced Master Credit Agreement dated January 15th. I had never seen a Master Credit Agreement. I hovered the mouse over the sign button. My heart was racing. If I didn't sign, Brooke would call. She would scream. She would tell my parents. They would call me selfish. They would say I was ruining the legacy. I closed my eyes. You don't owe them your future. I opened my eyes. I hit reply. Hi. I cannot sign this right now. I need to review the master credit agreement referenced in this document before I can acknowledge anything. Please send over the full agreement and an itemized list of current liabilities. Lydia. I hit send. I stared at the computer, waiting. I felt like I had just cut the red wire on a bomb. It took 4 minutes. My cell phone rang. Brooke calling. I let it ring. It stopped. It rang again immediately. I picked it up. Hello? I said. What the hell are you doing? Brooke screamed. Her voice was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. I am working. Brooke, I said, do not play dumb with me. Lydia, I just got a flag from the admin portal. You refused to sign the compliance form? Are you insane? I didn't refuse, I said, my voice shaking. I just asked to see the document it refers to. You do not need to see it, she shouted. It is internal corporate strategy. You are an investor, not a board member. You do not get to audit my books just because you threw in a few $1,000s. It is $12,000. Brooke, I said, and the form says, I am a guarantor. That means I am liable. I have a right to know what I'm liable for. You are liable for nothing if the deal closes, she shrieked, and the deal cannot close if the compliance file is incomplete. You are spooking the silent partner. Lydia, do you understand that? Daniel Reeve at Harborlight is waiting for this. If he sees that my own sister is holding up the paperwork, what do you think he's going to think? I don't know who Daniel Reeve is, I said, but if he is a professional investor, he should understand that I need to read what I sign. Oh my God, she laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. You are unbelievable. You are actually trying to sabotage me. That is what this is, isn't it? You cannot stand that I am winning. You cannot stand that Mom and Dad are finally proud of something. That is not true, I said. It is true. You are petty. You are small. And if this deal falls through because of you, Lydia, if Harborlight walks away because you wanted to play lawyer, it will be on your conscience forever. You will have destroyed this family. Do you hear me? You will have burned it all down. I gripped the phone. Tears were streaming down my face. Hot and fast. Send me the agreement. Brooke, I said, forcing the words out through a tight throat. Send me the agreement, and I will read it. She screamed a word I hadn't heard since we were teenagers, a word that was meant to hurt. Then she hung up. I sat in my cubicle, shaking. My coworkers were typing around me, oblivious. I wiped my face. I opened a new Word document on my computer. I typed the date, January 23rd, 10:14 a.m. Phone call with Brooke. She threatened that I would destroy the family if I did not sign the acknowledgement of guarantor status. She refused to show me the master credit agreement. She accused me of sabotage. I saved the file. I named it brightloop_notes.docx. I was shaking, but I wasn't signing. I looked at my phone wallpaper. $422. I wasn't doing this for the money anymore. I was doing it because for the first time in 32 years, I was refusing to set myself on fire to keep them warm. I started writing because I thought I was going crazy. That was the only explanation for the way my family looked at me, with a mixture of pity and disdain, as if my sudden desire to read contracts was a symptom of a nervous breakdown. My mother called every other day, her voice syrupy with concern, asking if I was taking my vitamins, if I was sleeping, if I was still being difficult. So I opened a file on my laptop, password protected it, and named it simply Journal, January 25th. Mom called, asked if I had signed the DocuSign yet. When I said no, she sighed and said, "Brooke is so stressed. Lydia, she is breaking out in hives. Do you want to be the reason she gets sick?" January 27th. Dad text. Team players don't ask for the playbook. They just run the route. Trust your sister. January 28th. Brooke email. If the deal falls through, the bridge loan defaults. If the bridge loan defaults, Mom and Dad lose the house. That is on you. Reading it back, seeing the words in black and white, stripped of the emotional fog of the moment, was terrifying. It wasn't love. It wasn't concern. It was a siege. They were battering me into submission, using guilt as a blunt instrument. I sat at my desk at Northway, the journal minimized in the background. My boss, David, walked by and tapped on my cubicle wall. "Lydia, got a minute?" I stood up, smoothing my skirt. My first thought, instantly, was that I was being fired, that the universe had decided to complete the demolition of my life. "Sure, David," I said. He led me into his office and gestured for me to sit. "We have an opportunity," he said. "The Regional Business Ethics Symposium is happening in Meadow Ridge next week. It is a 2-day conference. Usually, we send the legal team, but I want you to go." "Me?" I asked. "Why?" "Because you are the project lead on the compliance restructuring," he said. "And frankly, Lydia, you are the most ethical person I know. You care about the details. You care about doing things right. I think it would be good for you." I hesitated. The conference meant 2 days away from my apartment. It meant gas money to drive to Meadow Ridge. It meant buying lunch. "David, I appreciate it," I said, "but honestly, with the budget right now, company pays for everything." He interrupted. "Registration, hotel, meals, mileage. You just have to show up and take notes." I felt a lump in my throat. Someone wanted to invest in me. Someone thought I was worth sending somewhere. And it wasn't because I was useful collateral. It was because I was good at my job. I would love to go. I said, Meadow Ridge was only an hour away, but it felt like a different planet. The conference center was glass and steel, surrounded by manicured lawns. I checked into the hotel room Northway had paid for. It had a king-sized bed and a view of the river. I lay on the bed for 10 minutes, just breathing, enjoying the silence of a room where no one knew my name or my debt-to-income ratio. The next morning, I sat in the 3rd row of the main auditorium. The session was titled, "The Anatomy of Trust: Due Diligence in the Modern Venture Landscape." The panel consisted of 4 people: a forensic accountant, a lawyer, a venture capitalist, and a man named Daniel Reeve. Daniel was younger than I expected, maybe in his late 30s. He wore a gray suit without a tie. His title on the screen read, Senior Compliance Officer, Harbor Light Capital. Harbor Light Capital. My breath hitched. This was the man Brooke was terrified of. This was the man who held the $3.2 million key to my family's salvation. I watched him intently. He spoke with a quiet, measured authority. "We look for the story behind the numbers," Daniel said when the moderator asked about their vetting process. A balance sheet can be engineered. Revenue projections can be massaged. But character? Character leaves a trail. He paused, scanning the audience. We look for the quiet red flags. He continued. Does the founder answer questions directly, or do they deflect? Are the corporate records clean, or are there shell entities that don't seem to have a purpose? And most importantly, how do they treat their early supporters? If we see a cap table full of family members who don't seem to understand what they own, that is a red flag. It suggests coercion, not conviction. I felt a chill wash over me. It was as if he were reading from my journal. Coercion, not conviction. I wrote those words down in my notebook. I underlined them 3 times. After the session ended, the crowd milled about, drinking coffee and exchanging business cards. I saw Daniel standing near the stage, talking to a student. I stood by a pillar, clutching my notebook. My heart was pounding. This was dangerous. If Brooke knew I was here, if she knew I was 10 feet away from the man who could ruin her, she would kill me. But I remembered the journal. I remembered the feeling of being gaslit. I took a deep breath and walked over. "Excuse me?" I said. "Mr. Reeve?" He turned. He had kind eyes, tired but attentive. "Daniel, please," he said. "Hi," I said. "I am Lydia. I enjoyed the panel. Thank you." "Lydia," he said. "Are you in the industry?" "I am in HR project management." I said, "But I had a question about the family supporters part." He nodded, giving me his full attention. "What happens?" I asked, choosing my words carefully. "If someone signs something they didn't fully understand in a family-connected startup? Like, if they were pressured?" Daniel's expression shifted. It became sharper, more professional. "That happens more often than we like to admit." He said, "The founder leverages emotional capital to secure financial capital." "Exactly." I said, if they wanted to understand their liability, but the founder wouldn't show them the master documents, what should they do?" Daniel looked at me. He wasn't just looking at a conference attendee anymore. He was analyzing. "If your name is on a guarantee, Lydia," he said, using my name with deliberate weight, "you have a right to understand every line. You are a party to the contract. If the founder refuses to provide the documentation, that is a material breach of trust, and potentially a breach of the implied covenant of good faith." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. "My advice? Seek independent counsel, and do not sign anything else until you know exactly where the money is going." I took the card. It was heavy stock, cream-colored, just like the envelope on my parents' counter. "Thank you," I whispered. I walked away before I could vomit. That night, back in my hotel room, I sat with my laptop. I had drafted the email 5 times. To Dreve Harbor Lightcap, com. From Lydia, kelly.88@gmail.com. Subject, question regarding guarantee structure. Dear Mr. Reeve, we met briefly today at the conference in Meadow Ridge. You mentioned that a guarantor has a right to see the master documents. I am attaching a screenshot of a clause from an agreement I signed. I have redacted the company name and my last name for privacy. I am listed as a support guarantor. I have been told this is standard for a friends and family round, but I am being asked to acknowledge further liability without seeing the underlying credit agreement. Is this clause standard? Sincerely, Lydia. I attached the screenshot of subsection 14.b. I had carefully blacked out Brightloop and Kelly using the Paint app. I hit send. I felt like a traitor. I felt like a spy, but mostly, I felt like someone who was finally waking up. 2 days later, I was back in Clearwater. The post-conference high had faded, replaced by the grinding reality of my financial situation. I stopped at the grocery store on my way home from work. I put a carton of eggs, a loaf of bread, and a bag of apples on the conveyor belt. The total was $18.50. I swiped my debit card. Declined. I frowned. I checked my banking app. I had $412. I swiped it again. Declined. My face grew hot. The cashier, a teenage girl with purple hair, popped her gum. "You got another card?" she asked. I pulled out my credit card, the one I had just paid down slightly, declined. I felt the panic rising, that familiar constriction in my chest. I don't understand. I stammered. I have money. I stepped out of line, leaving my groceries. I walked out to my car, shaking. I called the bank. Please hold for the next available representative. I waited for 20 minutes, sweating in the parking lot. Finally, a woman answered. Ms. Kelly, she said. Yes. I see a security freeze on your accounts. A freeze? Why? There was suspicious activity detected, she said. Multiple hard inquiries in a short period of time, followed by a large credit application that was flagged for potential fraud. What application? I asked. I didn't apply for anything. We show an application for a commercial line of credit with Chase, she said. For $50,000. It listed you as a co-guarantor. The entity was, let me see, BL Innovations, LLC, BL Innovations, Bright Loop. My blood turned to ice. When? I asked. Yesterday. She said. Did it go through? No. She said, because of the recent activity on your credit report, the new personal loan you took out last week, our system flagged this as unusual velocity. We froze everything to be safe. I hung up. I drove to Brooke's apartment. I didn't call first. I didn't text. I just drove. Brooke lived in a loft downtown, a place she definitely couldn't afford without our parents' help. I banged on the door. She opened it, wearing yoga pants and a headset. Lydia, she said, annoyed. I am on a call. I pushed past her into the living room. It was cluttered with boxes, whiteboards, and half-drunk smoothies. Hang up, I said. She looked at me. Surprised by my tone, she tapped her headset. I will call you back, she said to the air. She took off the headset. What is your problem? You cannot just barge in here. Did you try to open a credit card in my name? I asked. Brooke blinked. She walked over to her kitchen island and picked up a water bottle. What? No. Don't be ridiculous. BL Innovations, LLC, I said. Chase Bank, $50,000. Yesterday. She took a sip of water. She didn't look at me. Oh, that, she said breezily. Relax. It didn't even go through. You tried to take out a $50,000 loan with me as the guarantor? Without asking me? It wasn't a loan. Lydia, she said, rolling her eyes. It was a business credit line. For cash flow. And I didn't try to do anything. I was filling out a batch of applications for the bridge financing. Your info was already auto-saved in the system from the participation agreement. I must have clicked something accidentally. Accidentally? I shouted. You accidentally applied for $50,000 of debt in my name? Lower your voice, she hissed. The neighbors. My accounts are frozen. Brooke, I couldn't buy groceries. The bank thinks I'm a victim of identity theft. You are so dramatic, she groaned. Just call them and unfreeze it. It is a glitch. These things happen in startups. We move fast. Sometimes wires get crossed. This isn't a crossed wire. This is fraud. She slammed the water bottle down. Stop using that word. You are my sister. I am trying to build an empire here. And you are crying about a declined debit card? Do you have any idea the pressure I am under? Harbor Light is breathing down my neck. Mom and Dad are counting on me. And you are storming in here accusing me of felonies? You used my name, I screamed. Because you are part of the company, she yelled back. You signed the agreement. You are a support guarantor. That means you support the company. I didn't agree to $50,000. I agreed to $12,000. You agreed to help, she screamed, her face turning red. And right now, you are not helping. You are sabotaging. You are sabotaging the company with your paranoia. She pointed a finger at me. If you mess this up for me, Lydia, if you cut off my liquidity because you are too scared to play in the big leagues, I will cut you out. I will write you out of the will, out of the trust, out of the family. You will be nothing. You hear me? Nothing. I stared at her. I looked at my sister, the golden child, the star, and I saw something I hadn't seen before. I saw desperation. She wasn't building an empire. She was drowning. and she was climbing on top of me to keep her head above water. I didn't say anything else. I turned around and walked out. I drove home in silence. I felt numb. The anger had burned itself out, leaving behind a cold, hard clarity. I unlocked my apartment. It was dark. I sat down at my kitchen table, not bothering to turn on the light. My phone pinged. I looked at it. It was an email notification. From DreveHarborLightcap.com. Subject: Question regarding guarantee structure. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Ms. Kelly, thank you for your email. While I cannot provide legal advice, the clause you shared contains language that raises significant concerns regarding disclosure. Additionally, based on the specific phrasing of the support guarantor provision and the redacted format, I believe I recognize the underlying document. We have recently received a due diligence file that includes a participation agreement with identical syntax. Would you be willing to speak with me by phone, in a confidential capacity? There are certain documents that have come to our attention with the name Lydia M. Kelly listed, and I would like to verify if you are aware of their existence. I can be reached at this number until 9 p.m. Daniel Reeve. I stared at the screen. He knew. He knew who I was. He knew about Brightloop. And he had documents. Documents I hadn't seen. There are certain documents that have come to our attention. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. This was it. This was the moment. If I called him, I was crossing the Rubicon. I was betraying Brooke. I was exposing the family. But Brooke had just looked me in the eye and told me that my financial ruin was a glitch. She had threatened to erase me. I looked at the number on the screen. I was torn between terror and relief. Terror because I was about to blow up my life. Relief because finally, someone else saw the fire. Someone else knew it wasn't just me being paranoid. I got up. I walked to the sink and splashed cold water on my face. I went back to the table. I pulled out a legal pad and a pen. I dialed the number. It rang once. Daniel Reeve, a voice said. Hi, I whispered. This is Lydia Kelly. There was a pause, a silence that felt heavy with implication. Lydia, Daniel said. His voice was calm, professional, but softer than it had been at the conference. Thank you for calling. I didn't know who else to ask. I said, You did the right thing. He said, Are you safe to talk? Yes. I said, I am at home. Alone. Okay, he said. I want to be clear. I am recording this call for internal compliance purposes. Is that okay? Yes. Lydia. In the file provided to us by Brightloop, LLC, on January 20th, there are 4 separate guarantee addendums bearing a digital signature assigned to you. 4? I asked. My voice cracked. I only signed one. The participation agreement. Daniel's voice remained steady. We have a commercial lease guarantee for a property on 4th Street. We have an equipment lease indemnity for server hardware. We have the bridge loan support guarantee. And we have a corporate card co-signatory authorization. I closed my eyes. Tears leaked out, hot and fast. I didn't sign those. I whispered, I didn't. I swear. I believe you. He said. The words hit me like a physical blow. I believe you. Why? I asked. Why do you believe me? Because, he said, the IP address on the digital signatures for those 4 documents matches the IP address of the founder, Brooke Kelly. They were signed within 3 minutes of each other on Tuesday night. Tuesday night, the night my credit card was declined. The night Brooke said she clicked something accidentally. She forged them. I said, it wasn't a question. Daniel didn't answer directly. Lydia, he said, did you receive independent legal advice before entering into the initial agreement? No, I said, my parents. They said it was standard. Okay, he said, listen to me carefully. HarborLight is pausing the transaction. We are initiating a deep dive audit. I need to know if you are willing to go on the record with what you just told me, that you did not authorize these signatures, if I do that. I said, what happens to the company? If there is fraud, Lydia, the deal dies, and the bridge loans, they will likely be called in. My parents' house, I said, I cannot speak to that, he said, but I can tell you this. If you do not speak up, and this deal closes, you will be personally liable for over $400,000 of debt that is currently being structured. $400,000. The number was so big it didn't even sound real. It sounded like a death sentence. I looked at my legal pad. I had written down the list: commercial lease, server hardware, bridge loan, corporate card. She had sold me. She had sold me piece by piece to buy her dream. "Lydia?" Daniel asked. "Are you there?" "I am here," I said. "Are you willing to help us?" I thought about the trophies on the mantelpiece. I thought about the way my father looked at Brooke. I thought about the $12,000. I thought about the glitch. "Yes," I said. "I will help you." "Good," Daniel said. "I will be in touch." The line went dead. I sat in the dark kitchen. I was shivering. I had just pulled the pin. The silence after I hung up with Daniel Reeve was heavier than the conversation itself. I sat in the dark of my kitchen, the phone screen glowing against the laminate tabletop. My hands were still shaking, a fine tremor that rattled the pen against the legal pad where I had written the list of documents I had never signed: commercial lease, server hardware, bridge loan, corporate card. I felt a strange, hollow sensation in my chest. It was the feeling of a structure collapsing, not a building, but the architecture of my reality. For 32 years, I had lived inside a story where I was the supporting character, the reliable but unremarkable sister who existed to prop up the protagonist. I had accepted my role. I had paid $12,000 to keep my role. But now, staring at that list, I realized I wasn't a supporting character. I was a resource. I was a vein of ore to be mined until I was empty. I slept fitfully that night, dreaming of signatures that morphed into snakes and wrapped around my wrists. When I woke up, the sky was a bruised gray, and I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. I called the legal clinic at 9 in the morning. I didn't care about the cost anymore. I needed armor. I need to hire Marissa Trent. I told the receptionist, not as a volunteer, as my attorney, I will pay her hourly rate. I will put it on a credit card if I have to. When I met Marissa 2 days later, it wasn't in the gymnasium of the community center. It was in her small, cluttered office above a bakery on Main Street. The room smelled of yeast and old paper. I sat across from her and laid everything out: the phone call with Daniel, the list of forged documents, the frozen bank accounts, the $50,000 credit application. Marissa listened without interrupting. She took notes on a yellow pad, her pen scratching aggressively against the paper. When I finished, she took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. "Okay," she said. Her voice was flat, professional. "We are moving past the bad idea phase and into the criminal exposure phase." She stood up and went to a whiteboard on the wall. She drew a timeline. January 15th, you sign the participation agreement. January 20th, Bright Loop submits a due diligence package to Harbor Light. January 21st, 4 new guarantees appear with your digital signature. She tapped the marker against the board. "Here is what happened. Lydia, when you signed that first document on the tablet, the software captured your digital signature hash. It is a unique encrypted string. Someone, and we have to assume it was someone with admin access, copied that hash and pasted it onto the other documents. They didn't just forge your name. They stole your digital identity." "Brooke," I whispered. Marissa turned to me. "Brooke, or someone acting on her orders. It doesn't matter who clicked the mouse. As the CEO, she is responsible for the integrity of the closing documents." She sat back down. "We need to pull your full credit reports from all 3 bureaus immediately." She said, "We need to see if there are other inquiries we missed. And Lydia, you need to file a police report." I froze. "A police report?" I asked. "You mean arrest her?" "I mean an identity theft report." Marissa said, "It is an affidavit filed with the Federal Trade Commission and your local police. It is the only way to get those fraudulent accounts off your record. If you don't file it, the banks will assume you are complicit. They will assume you authorized it and are just having buyer's remorse." "But it is my sister," I said. "If I file a police report, won't that destroy the company? Won't that destroy her? Marissa leaned forward. Her eyes were hard. Lydia, she said, she stole your identity. She tried to saddle you with $500,000 of debt. That is not a sister. That is a predator. You feel guilty because you have been trained to protect her, but you are not attacking her. You are protecting yourself from crimes you did not commit. Crimes. The word hung in the air, heavy and ugly. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. I will pull the reports. That afternoon, I sat in Marissa's office and watched the printer spit out page after page of my financial life. We found 2 more inquiries, one for a fleet vehicle lease, one for a high-interest short-term loan provider. I stared at the papers. It was a feeding frenzy. Brooke had been using my name like a stolen credit card, swiping it everywhere she could before the limit was reached. I felt a wave of nausea, followed by a cold, sharp anger. It was the anger that finally allowed me to sign the affidavit Marissa prepared. Affidavit of identity theft. Victim, Lydia M. Kelly. Suspect, unknown/pending investigation. We didn't name Brooke specifically in the initial filing. Marissa said we didn't have to yet. We just had to declare the activity unauthorized. But we both knew where the road led. The next day, the internal review at Harbor Light escalated. I received an email from Daniel at 10 in the morning. It was formal, encrypted, and terrifyingly specific. Dear Ms. Kelly, pursuant to our conversation regarding the unauthorized guarantees, our forensic team has identified discrepancies in the disclosure schedules provided by the founder. Specifically, we are reviewing a document titled Consent to Collateralization, Real Property, dated January 18th. This document purports to authorize the use of the property at 442 Maple Drive as security for the bridge facility. It bears the signatures of Mark Kelly, Helen Kelly, and Lydia M. Kelly as family consentor. Please confirm if you signed this document. I stared at the screen. Family consentor. My parents' house. I typed back immediately. I did not sign this. I have never seen this document. Daniel replied within minutes. Thank you. We are also noting that the bridge facility has a cross-default clause if the equity injection does not occur by February 1st. The bridge loan matures immediately. We are concerned that the borrowers, your parents, may not have been fully apprised of this trigger. I felt sick. My parents didn't understand cross-default clauses. They thought they were just releasing equity. They didn't know that if Brooke's deal fell apart, the bank could take their home immediately, and Brooke knew. She had to know. She had signed the papers. She was gambling with the roof over their heads, and she was using my forged name to seal the bet. That night was the celebration dinner. It had been on the calendar for weeks. My mother had been talking about it nonstop. She had booked a table at the Onyx Room, the most expensive steakhouse in the city. She said it was to celebrate the closing of the deal, which was supposed to happen on Friday. I didn't want to go. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to stay home, to lock the door, to hide. But Marissa had told me to maintain normalcy. Don't tip your hand, she had said. If Brooke knows you are working with Harbor Light, she might destroy evidence. Go to dinner. Be the boring sister. So I put on the black dress again. I drove to the restaurant. My parents were already there when I arrived. They were sitting at a booth near the window, looking out at the city lights. My father was wearing a new tie. My mother had had her hair done. They looked happy. Not just happy, relieved. They looked like people who had been holding their breath for years and were finally exhaling. Lydia! My father boomed when he saw me. He stood up and hugged me. A bear hug that smelled of cologne and optimism. We ordered the champagne, my mother said, clapping her hands. The expensive one. Brooke said we have to toast properly. Where is Brooke? I asked, sliding into the booth. Oh, she's running a few minutes late. My mother said, waving a hand. Closing details. You know how it is. High finance. I nodded. I knew exactly how it was. Brooke arrived 20 minutes later. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Her makeup was perfect, but there was a tightness around her eyes, a frantic energy in the way she moved. She was typing on her phone as she walked to the table. Sorry, she muttered. Sitting down without looking at us, These lawyers are morons. Absolute morons. Everything okay? Honey? My father asked, pouring her a glass of champagne. It is fine, Brooke snapped. Just compliance idiots. They want to re-verify everything. It is just bureaucracy. They have to justify their billable hours. She took a large gulp of champagne. But the money is coming? My mother asked, her voice trembling slightly. Friday, Brooke said. Wire hits Friday morning. 3.2 million. Then we pay off the bridge loan. We pay off the credit cards. And we are rich. She forced a smile. It looked like a grimace. So, to the future, my father said, raising his glass. To Brightloop. To Brightloop. My mother echoed. I lifted my glass. My hand was steady, but my heart was pounding. To the truth, I said quietly. They didn't hear me. They clinked glasses, lost in their fantasy. We ordered dinner. My parents talked about the cruise they wanted to book for the fall, a European river cruise. My father talked about retiring early. Brooke didn't eat. She pushed her steak around the plate, checking her phone every 30 seconds. Her leg was bouncing under the table, shaking the booth slightly. I watched her. I watched the way she avoided eye contact with me. I watched the way she snapped at the waiter when he tried to refill her water. She knows. I thought, she knows Harbor Light is digging. She knows the walls are closing in. As the waiter cleared the plates, Brooke's phone buzzed. She looked at it and went pale. She slammed the phone face down on the table. Damn it! She hissed. What? My mother asked. Alarmed? Nothing, Brooke said. Just, Daniel Reeve is asking for another document. At 8 o'clock at night. Who works at 8 o'clock at night? I took a sip of water. The ice cubes clinked against the glass. I think he is very thorough. I said. Brooke's head snapped up. She looked at me. Her eyes were dangerous. What would you know about it? She asked. I set the glass down. He emailed me too. I said. The table went silent. My parents looked from me to Brooke and back again. He emailed you? Brooke asked slowly. When? A few times. I said. He had some questions about the paperwork, about the guarantees. Brooke's face turned a mottled red. What did you tell him? She demanded. Her voice rose, cutting through the ambient noise of the restaurant. I told him the truth. I said, The truth? Brooke laughed. A harsh, barking sound. What truth? That you are a nervous wreck? That you don't understand how business works? I told him I didn't sign the other documents. Brooke, I said, the ones you forged? My mother gasped. Lydia, she cried. How dare you use that word? Brooke stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. People at the nearby tables turned to look. You spoke to the investors? She screamed. Behind my back? You went to Harbor Light and told them I forged documents? I didn't authorize them, I said, keeping my voice low. There were 4 of them. Brooke, I saw the list. You idiot, Brooke yelled. She slammed her hands on the table, making the silverware jump. You have no idea what you have done. You are sabotaging the deal. You are trying to wreck the biggest thing this family has ever had because you are jealous. Brooke, sit down, my father said, looking around nervously. People are staring. Let them stare, Brooke shouted. My own sister is a traitor. I am trying to save us. I am trying to build a legacy. And she is running to the compliance officer like a tattletale. She looked at me with pure hatred. You are petty. Lydia, you are so small. You couldn't handle that I was the one doing something big. You had to drag me down to your level. I didn't drag you down. I said, you stole my identity. You put Mom and Dad's house up as collateral without telling them the risks. I looked at my parents. Did you know? I asked them, did you know that if the deal doesn't close on Friday, the bank takes the house? My mother looked at Brooke. Her face was pale. Brooke? She whispered. Is that true? Brooke waved her hand dismissively. It is standard collateralization, she yelled. It doesn't matter because the deal is going to close, unless Lydia spooked them, unless she poisoned the well. She pointed a shaking finger at me. If Harbor Light walks away, it is your fault. Do you hear me? If we lose the house, It is your fault. If I go bankrupt, it is your fault. You did this. I looked at her. I saw the terror behind the rage. She was cornered, and she was biting, but I wasn't 6 years old anymore, and I wasn't afraid of her. I didn't forge the signatures. Brooke, I said calmly, you did. Brooke let out a scream of frustration. She grabbed her purse. I am done, she said. I am going to fix this. I am going to call Daniel and tell him you are unstable. I will tell him you are off your meds. I will fix it. She stormed out of the restaurant, leaving a wake of silence and staring diners. My parents sat frozen. My mother was crying silently, tears dripping onto her silk blouse. My father looked old. Suddenly, he looked at his hands. Lydia, he said softly. Why? Why couldn't you just wait? I looked at him, even now, even after everything. He was blaming me. I stood up. I put a $20 bill on the table to cover my share of the appetizers I hadn't eaten. Because I am not nobody. Dad, I said. I walked out. I didn't look back. The next 3 days were a slow-motion car crash. On Thursday, the rumor mill started. A tech blog called Silicon Prairie News posted a short item. Bright Loop deal on ice? Sources say, due diligence, snag halts $3.2 million injection. On Friday morning, the day the wire was supposed to hit, HarborLight released a statement. It was brief and devastatingly vague. HarborLight Capital has suspended its participation in the Series A funding round for Brightloop LLC pending the resolution of ongoing compliance reviews. We have no further comment at this time. The effect was instant. I was at work when the news broke. My phone started blowing up. Texts from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Is everything okay? I saw the news. At Northway. I tried to focus on my spreadsheets, but my mind was elsewhere. I checked the Brightloop website. It was down for maintenance. The silence from my parents was deafening. They didn't call. They didn't text. They were bunkered down in the house on Maple Drive. Probably watching the driveway, waiting for the bank to show up. I went home early on Friday. I felt exhausted, drained to the marrow. I ordered a pizza because I didn't have the energy to cook. I sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the wall, at 8 o'clock. There was a pounding on my door. It wasn't a knock. It was a physical assault on the wood. Lydia, open the door. It was Brooke. I didn't move. Lydia, I know you're in there. Open the damn door. She kicked the door. I got up. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. She was alone. She looked disheveled. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot. She was wearing a tracksuit. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door. She pushed past me, storming into my living room. She smelled of alcohol and stale perfume. "Are you happy?" she screamed, spinning around to face me. "Are you happy now?" I closed the door. "I am not happy." "Brooke," I said. "You killed it," she said. Her voice broke. "You killed it. Daniel called me at 4 o'clock. They are pulling out. Formally, they are referring the file to their legal department for fraud review." She paced back and forth, her hands in her hair. "Do you know what that means? It means it is over. The bridge loan is due on Monday. I don't have the money. I don't have the $3.2 million. I don't even have $10,000. She stopped pacing and looked at me. Her eyes were wild. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you do it?" "I didn't do it," I said. "You did." "You signed my name. Who cares?" she shrieked. "It was a signature. It was pixels on a screen. It didn't mean anything. We were going to be rich. We were going to be legends. And you threw it all away because of what? Principles? Principles matter," I said. "Principles don't pay the mortgage," she yelled. "Mom and Dad are going to lose the house. Lydia, they are going to be on the street. And it is your fault." She walked up to me. Getting right in my face, I could smell the wine on her breath. "You know why you did it?" she hissed. "Because you couldn't stand it. You couldn't stand that I was the golden one. You couldn't stand that I had the brilliance and you were just the help." I stood my ground. I didn't flinch. "You paid $12,000 just to prove you are nobody. she sneered, her voice dripping with venom. And congratulations. Lydia, you did it. You are the nobody who ruined everything. You are the nobody who destroyed this family. I hope it was worth it. I looked at her. I looked at the sister I had worshipped for 30 years. I looked at the person I had bankrupted myself to please. I looked at the person who had called me a glitch, and suddenly, the cord snapped. The invisible tether that had bound me to her, the need for her approval, the fear of her rejection, just disintegrated. I felt a strange calm wash over me. It was the calm of someone who has nothing left to lose. I walked over to the door and opened it wide. "Get out," I said. Brooke blinked. She looked confused by my tone. It wasn't angry. It was indifferent. "What?" "Get out of my apartment." "Brooke," I said. "You cannot kick me out," she said. "We are not done. You need to fix this. You need to call Daniel and tell him you lied." "No," I said. "Lydia." I said, "Get out." I pointed to the hallway. Brooke stared at me. She looked for a crack in my armor, a sign of the weak, pliable sister she knew. She didn't find one. She let out a noise of disgust and walked to the door. She stopped on the threshold and looked back. "Mom and Dad will never forgive you," she said. "I know," I said. She slammed the door. I heard her footsteps retreating down the hallway. I heard the elevator ding. I locked the deadbolt. Then I engaged the chain. I slid down the door until I was sitting on the floor. I pulled my knees to my chest. I didn't cry immediately. I just sat there, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. I had done the unthinkable. I had chosen myself. I had chosen the truth over the tribe. And Brooke was right. It had cost me everything. My parents, my family, my history. But as the tears finally came, hot and cleansing, I realized something else. I wasn't a nobody. I was the one holding the match, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the fire. I sat on the floor and sobbed, grieving the family I had lost, and welcoming the stranger I was becoming. The summons arrived on Monday morning at 9 o'clock sharp. It was not an email this time. It was a courier delivery to my desk at Northway Transolutions. The envelope was thick, heavy, and cream-colored, stamped with the navy blue seal of Harborlight Capital. Inside, there was a single letter printed on bonded paper. "Dear Ms. Kelly, regarding the pending Series A transaction for Brightloop LLC, Harborlight Capital requires your presence at a mandatory compliance review meeting. This meeting will address outstanding questions regarding guarantor authorizations and financial disclosures. Attendance is required for all signatories. Brooke Kelly, founder, Mark and Helen Kelly, primary guarantors, and Lydia M. Kelly, support guarantor. Date, Tuesday, January 27th. Time, 10 a.m. Location, Harborlight Tower, Riverbend City. I read the letter twice. It felt less like a meeting invitation and more like a subpoena. I looked up at the calendar on my cubicle wall. Tuesday, tomorrow. I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. The panic of the last week, the frozen bank accounts, the fight with Brooke, the guilt trips from my mother, had burned itself out. What was left was a cold, hard clarity. This was the end of the road. I took the day off work. David, my boss, didn't ask questions. He just looked at my face, saw the exhaustion etched there, and told me to take as much time as I needed. Riverbend City was 40 minutes away, a gleaming metropolis of steel and glass that made Clearwater look like a dusty outpost. On Tuesday morning, I drove there alone. My mother had texted me 17 times, offering to pick me up so we could drive together as a family. I hadn't replied. I was done being part of that family unit. I was driving myself. I parked my 7-year-old sedan in the underground garage of the Harborlight Tower, surrounded by Teslas and Mercedes. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I was wearing my best navy suit, the one I used for board presentations at Northway. I looked professional. I looked capable. I looked like someone who wasn't going to be bullied. I took the elevator to the lobby. It was a cavernous space with marble floors and a security desk that looked like the command center of a spaceship. I saw them standing near the turnstiles. My father was pacing, wiping his forehead with a handkerchief. My mother was clutching her purse with white knuckles, staring at the floor, and Brooke. Brooke was standing a few feet away from them, scrolling on her phone. She was wearing a power suit in electric blue, her hair perfectly blown out, her heels sharp and aggressive. She looked like the cover of a business magazine, but from 10 feet away. I could see the tension in her jaw, the way her neck muscles were corded tight. I walked over. "Lydia," my father breathed when he saw me. "Thank God. We were worried you wouldn't show." "I am here, Dad," I said. My mother reached out and grabbed my arm. Her grip was painful. "Lydia," she whispered, pulling me close. "Listen to me. Whatever they ask, we just need to present a united front. Brooke says this is just a stress test. They want to see if the team holds up under pressure. Just downplay everything, okay? Remember that Brooke is under so much stress. We have to support her." I looked at my mother. I looked at the fear in her eyes, the desperate need to believe the lie. I pulled my arm away gently. "We should go up," I said. Brooke didn't look at me. She stared straight ahead at the elevator banks. Her jaw clenched so tight I thought her teeth might crack. She was treating me like a stranger. No, worse than a stranger, like a ghost she refused to acknowledge. We rode the elevator to the 42nd floor. The silence in the small metal box was suffocating. I could hear my father's heavy breathing. I could smell my mother's perfume, which seemed to have soured on her skin. I watched the numbers climb. 10, 20, 30. My stomach did a slow roll, but I kept my breathing steady. I visualized the journal on my laptop. I visualized the affidavit I had signed. I had the truth on my side. The doors opened. We were met by a receptionist who didn't smile. "Conference room A," she said. "Mr. Reeve is expecting you." Conference room A was a glass-walled aquarium at the corner of the building. It offered a panoramic view of the river and the city skyline, but the room itself felt sterile and cold. In the center was a long mahogany table. Sitting at the head of the table was Daniel Reeve. Beside him was a woman I didn't recognize. She was older, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and glasses that hung on a chain around her neck. "Please, sit down," Daniel said. He didn't offer to shake hands. We sat on one side of the table, Brooke in the middle, my parents flanking her, and me at the far end, leaving an empty chair between my mother and myself. Daniel opened a thick file folder. "Thank you for coming," he said. "This is Evelyn Marsh, our senior partner in risk management." Evelyn Marsh looked at us over the rim of her glasses. Her gaze was clinical, dissecting. "We are here," Evelyn said, her voice dry as parchment, "to discuss the findings of our final due diligence review for the Series A investment in Brightloop." Brooke cleared her throat. She put on her best pitch-meeting smile, though it wavered at the edges. "We are so excited to get this over the line." "Evelyn," she said, "I know there have been some hiccups with the paperwork, but my team is ready to hit the ground running as soon as the wire lands." Evelyn didn't smile back. "There will be no wire, Ms. Kelly," she said. The silence that followed was absolute. My father let out a small, strangled sound. Brooke's smile froze, then shattered. "Excuse me?" Brooke said. "We have a term sheet. We have a commitment. You have a conditional commitment." Evelyn corrected. "Conditioned on the veracity of your financial disclosures and the integrity of your corporate structure, both of which have been found to be lacking." She nodded to Daniel. Daniel slid a piece of paper across the polished table. It was a spreadsheet. "We have identified significant discrepancies between your reported burn rate and your actual bank activity," Daniel said. "But the primary concern today is the issue of the guarantees." He looked at me. His eyes were kind, but firm. "Ms. Lydia Kelly," he said, "can you please confirm for the record, did you authorize the digital signatures on the bridge loan support guarantee, the commercial lease for the property on 4th Street, and the Chase corporate card application?" My mother turned to me. Her eyes were pleading. "Just downplay everything." I looked at Daniel. Then I looked at Brooke. She was staring at the table, refusing to meet my gaze. "No," I said. My voice trembled slightly, but the word was clear. I did not. My mother let out a gasp. "Lydia," she hissed. "You don't know what you are saying. You are confused. I am not confused." "Mom," I said, turning to her. "I signed one document, the participation agreement for $12,000. I did not sign for a bridge loan. I did not sign for a lease. And I certainly didn't sign for a $50,000 credit card." Brooke slammed her hand on the table. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "It is a clerical error. We use a batch signing software. My admin probably just auto-populated the fields because Lydia is a listed officer. It is a software glitch." Daniel slid another paper across the table. "This is a log of the IP addresses and timestamps for those signatures," he said. "They were executed on Tuesday, January 20th, between 8:14 p.m. and 8:17 p.m. He pointed to a column. "The IP address matches the residential internet service at your apartment. Brooke, not the office, your apartment." And at 8:15 p.m. on that Tuesday, Lydia was at a grocery store in Clearwater, attempting to use a debit card that had been declined because of a fraud alert triggered by your applications. He looked at Brooke. "Unless Lydia has the ability to be in 2 cities at once, she did not sign those documents. You did." Brooke's face went from pale to a splotchy red. "It is a startup," she yelled. "We move fast. I was trying to secure the bridge financing to save the company. I knew Lydia would agree to it eventually. I was just expediting the process. It is standard practice. It is forgery," Evelyn Marsh said. Her voice cut through the air like a whip. "It is bank fraud, and it is a felony." My father made a noise like he had been punched in the gut. He slumped in his chair. "Forgery?" he whispered. "Brooke?" Brooke turned on him, her eyes wild. "I did it for us. Dad. I needed the bridge loan to keep the lights on until the Harbor Light money came in. If I didn't sign the guarantee, the bank wouldn't release the funds, and we would have missed payroll. I was saving the company." "So you stole your sister's identity?" Evelyn asked calmly. "I didn't steal anything," Brooke shrieked. "She is my sister. Her money is my money. We are a family. It is all the same pot." "No," Evelyn said. "It is not." She opened another folder. "Speaking of the pot," she said, "we also took a closer look at the company's spending accounts." She spread a series of photos and receipts across the table. "Here we have a charge for $4,000 at a luxury resort in Tulum, listed in the ledger as Executive Wellness Retreat. Here we have a receipt for 2 vintage Chanel handbags, totaling $8,000, listed as client gifting, and here's a payment of $15,000 to a contractor for office renovation, which, upon investigation, turns out to be a deposit for a landscape architect at a residential address, 442 Maple Drive. My parents' address, the gazebo." My mother put her hand over her mouth. "Brooke," she whispered, You said the company was paying for the remodel because it was an entertaining expense." "It is," Brooke insisted, though her voice was losing its power. "It is for branding. I have to look successful to be successful. You were using investor funds to landscape your parents' backyard." Evelyn said, "Before you even closed the round, you were spending money you didn't have, and you were using your family's credit to cover the holes." Evelyn closed the folder. "This is not a business, Ms. Kelly. It is a Ponzi scheme built on emotional manipulation." The room went silent. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning. My father looked at the papers on the table. He looked at the list of debts. He looked at the forged signatures. "I signed everything," he whispered. His voice was broken. "She put papers in front of me, and I just signed them. I didn't even read them. I just wanted her to have it. I wanted her to have the life we never had. Mark?" My mother sobbed. "Mark, what have we done? We bet the house." "Helen," he said, tears rolling down his cheeks. "We bet the house, and it is gone." My mother turned to me. Her face was wet with tears. Her makeup streaked. "Lydia," she begged, "please, you can fix this. Just tell them. Tell them you gave permission. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. If you don't, they will pull the money. We will lose the house. Brooke will be ruined. She reached for my hand again. Please, Lydia, do not destroy your sister. I looked at my mother. I saw a woman so terrified of reality that she was willing to sacrifice her other daughter to keep the illusion alive. I pulled my hand back. I am not destroying her. Mom, I said softly, she destroyed herself. I am just telling the truth. My mother recoiled, as if I had slapped her. Harbor Light Capital is formally withdrawing its commitment, Evelyn announced, standing up. We are terminating all negotiations. Furthermore, given the evidence of fraudulent credit applications using our potential investment as leverage, we are legally obligated to report these findings to the relevant regulatory bodies. Brooke's face went gray. The color drained out of her skin so completely she looked like a corpse. Report? She whispered. You mean the police? That is up to the authorities, Evelyn said. But as of this moment, Brightloop is no longer a candidate for our portfolio. And I strongly suggest you advise your bridge lenders that the equity injection is not coming. The meeting was over. My father stood up. He looked unsteady on his feet. He didn't look at Brooke. He walked to the door like a man in a trance. My mother followed him, sobbing into her hands. Brooke sat there for a moment longer. She looked at the empty chair where the $3.2 million should have been. She looked at me. There was no anger left in her eyes, just a vast, terrifying emptiness. You happy? She mouthed. No sound came out. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked out of the room without looking back. I sat there. I watched them go. I felt a strange lightness, like gravity had released its hold on me. I stood up to leave. Lydia? I turned. Daniel was still sitting at the table. Evelyn Marsh was standing by the window. Could you stay for a moment? Daniel asked. I nodded. I sat back down. Evelyn turned from the window. She took off her glasses. That was difficult, she said. Yes, I said. It was. Most people would have folded, she said. In my 30 years in this business, I have seen dozens of people in your position. They almost always lie to protect the family. They sign the retroactive consent. They go down with the ship. She walked over to the table and leaned against it. You didn't, she said. You stood your ground. You kept records. You asked the hard questions. She looked at Daniel, then back to me. We have a vacancy in our portfolio oversight team, she said. It is a role focused on ethics and HR compliance. We need people who can look at a spreadsheet and see the story behind the numbers. And more importantly, we need people who value the truth more than they value being liked. I stared at her. Are you offering me a job? I asked. I am offering you a conversation about a job, she said. It pays significantly more than what you are making at Northway, and it is here, in Riverbend, far enough away from Clearwater to start over. I felt a spark in my chest, a tiny, warm light. I would be interested. I said, Good, she said. Call Daniel on Monday. We will set it up. I walked out of the conference room. I walked down the long hallway to the elevator. I rode it down to the lobby alone. I walked out the revolving doors into the cold winter sunlight. I stood on the sidewalk, taking a deep breath of the crisp air. It tasted clean. I looked down the street. About 50 yards away, near the entrance to the parking garage, I saw Brooke. She was pacing back and forth, her phone pressed to her ear. She was gesturing furiously, her blue suit a bright slash of color against the gray concrete. I could see the desperation in her body language. She was calling the bridge lenders. She was calling the credit card companies. She was trying to spin the unspinnable. I saw a news van pull up to the curb near her. A reporter jumped out with a microphone. The rumors had hit the mainstream. Brooke saw them and turned away, shielding her face with her purse. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A text from Brooke. You win. Happy now? I looked at the screen. I didn't feel happy in the way she meant. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sorrow for the loss of my family, for the parents who couldn't love me enough to protect me, for the sister who had been consumed by her own ambition. But I also felt free. I looked at the text one last time. Then I deleted it. I didn't reply. I didn't owe her a reply. I didn't owe her anything anymore. My phone rang again immediately. An incoming call. I looked at the caller ID. It wasn't my mother. It wasn't my father. It was a number with a Riverbend area code, the main line for Harborlight Capital. I looked at Brooke one last time. She was arguing with the reporter now, her face twisted in rage. She was still fighting a war she had already lost. I turned my back on her. I looked up at the glass tower reflecting the sky. I swiped the green button. "Hello, this is Lydia," I said. And for the first time in my life, the name sounded like it belonged to someone who mattered. Thank you so much for listening to the story of Lydia and the collapse of Brightloop. It was a journey through betrayal, gaslighting, and the hard price of truth. But I hope you found Lydia's courage as inspiring as I did. I would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below telling me where you are listening from. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. And if you enjoyed this drama, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories so you never miss an episode. Share your thoughts in English in the comments. Do you think Lydia made the right choice? Or should she have protected her family? I cannot wait to read what you think. Until next time.